My name is Buddy Wolf, and today I'd like to share with you what I've learned by implementing a new informal classroom assessment technique in one of my classes. This video is an assignment for my Provincial Instructor's Diploma Program, PIDP 3230. Using the text Classroom Assessment Techniques, a handbook for college teachers by Angelo and Cross, I selected the technique of the memory matrix in order to test my students' recollection of important sauces. The main principle that drives the memory matrix as an informal classroom assessment technique is to assess memory recall using a visual aid provided by me. By creating a blank informational grid and populating the row and column headers with information, I am able to assess my students' ability to remember very specific facts from their learning as they're required to fill in the grid with their answers. The cat helps to evaluate my success at passing that information on to them. It's meant to be a quick assessment, and its result used to further assess both what has been learned and what topics maybe need more time in covering. It's a really great strategy to use to test comprehension and memory after class, which is why I used it. I chose this strategy because of its low-level simplicity on Bloom's taxonomy. In culinary arts, there are many low-level cognitive learning competencies involving recall and fact recognition. Sauces is one topic many of the students struggle with, but they're critical as they are the foundation of classical French cuisine. Sometimes I just need my students to memorize facts, so I was hoping that this technique would be successful. Lucky for me, it was. Like any assessment technique, there are both advantages and disadvantages to using it. Some of the advantages are simplicity. Simplicity in format makes it easy to make and easy to use for the students. Visual. It's a visual learning aid which helps many students, like myself, learn, retain, and recall information better. It can be used as a great resource for pre-exam review or post-lecture assessment of understanding and of memory. My favorite part is that it's adaptable and totally modifiable. I can make this group work or I can do individual work. I can change the information that I provide, and in doing so, change the answers required. I can even do it together in a class on the whiteboard. Some of the disadvantages are simplicity as well. It is extreme in its simplicity, and it doesn't really lend itself to creative thinking on the part of the student. Different students learn and retain information in different ways, and the structure of the technique doesn't really allow students to explore their own ways of learning. Low level. This is low level learning, as I mentioned before. It only really assesses basic information and recall. So if you're using this technique, be sure that it aligns with the validity of your content and course outcomes. Because the categories and information can be extremely basic, this may end up testing knowledge that is actually pre-existing. For this class, I built on the students' knowledge in multiple ways. The memory matrix was the finite piece in a day-long puzzle of learning. The first thing that I did was assign the chapter reading from the textbook prior to the class that correlated with the subject matter of classical French sauces, the 5 mother sauces, secondary sauces, and their applications. I then delivered a lecture on sauces in the classroom, using PowerPoint to associate images with the content. I've always found that for me, if I can associate a picture with information, that it can help improve my memory and fact recollection. We then played a Kahoot based on sauces. We love Kahoot. We love playing it in class. It's fun, visual, and interactive way of reviewing content, and the students really enjoy its competitive aspect. After the theory portion of the class, we moved into the food lab where we actually created the 5 mother sauces in groups. The class was split into 5 groups, and each group made 1 sauce. We then divided the sauces up so that each group had 5 sauces to work with. There are countless secondary sauces that can be made in the culinary canon, but some of them are more commonly used than others. I wrote down 5 secondary sauces for each mother sauce on slips of paper and put them in the proverbial hat. Each group drew a slip for each sauce, so each group now had some of each mother sauce and 5 different secondary sauces to make. Each group made all of their respective sauces. We then got together as a class and tasted each sauce while each group talked about the sauces that they made. I love the flipped classroom concept where the students get to teach each other. I find it a very effective way of creating sticky learning for the students. We finished the class with the sauce matrix, where their recall would be tested. After assigning the matrix, I then reviewed the answers of the students and looked for patterns in their memory. There were specific areas that needed more attention than others. I tallied up the marks and then shared the matrix with the average grades instead of the answers in each of the cell. We then discussed as a class which areas of the subject needed more work than others. Using the memory matrix, I was able to assess where my students stood on their ability to recall this important information. Specifically, it highlighted for me that more work needs to be done around the topic of applications of sauces, what dish each sauce is best suited for. Moving forward, I will definitely increase the amount of time that I spend on this, but I will continue to use this format for my sauce class day. It was very effective and flowed really well, using a few different techniques to teach and assess this topic on sauces. Thanks for listening. I hope that this might help you succeed in your classroom as well.